What up, tubers? Bunny here, and welcome back to GeoFlight Simulator. So this week, I'm going to be talking about the Boeing 737. So this is a small jet-powered passenger aircraft. It's actually one of the most common aircraft used by airlines worldwide. It can seat about 130 passengers on short to medium range flights. And actually, with it being one of the most common aircraft in the world, this is also one of the most made aircraft in GeoFS. Not only by Xavier Tassin, the developer of the game, who has added like 6 possible liveries for this particular aircraft, but there's also several other community contributions. So this is the KLM, the Royal Dutch Airlines livery. And actually, to find the 737, go into the aircraft menu, and it's the 4th item down. In particular, this is the 737-700. And as you can see, 6 possible liveries provided by Xavier. Like I said, this is Royal Dutch Airlines. This is the United Airlines livery. This is All Nippon Airways, Southwest, WestJet, and Gull, or Ghoul. I don't know if that's another O right there or what. I don't know. But there are also several other community contributions, like I said earlier. So this one is the 737-800 by King Solomon. However, I have found that this aircraft no longer works properly. You see how I just did that sort of back roll like that? Yeah, I tried playing around with this aircraft and I have found that it no longer flies properly, so don't even try to fly it. But anyway, if I pause it and let you just look at it, this aircraft is in the American Airlines livery. So yeah, you're not going to be able to fly American Airlines with this plane. There are also 4 737 MAX 8s that a user called Spice9 has added to this community contributions list. One of them being TUI. He also has liveries for SpiceJet, Norwegian, and LOT. Also, there is a Navy aircraft, the Boeing P8I Neptune. And while you might think this is some different aircraft, the P8I is actually a 737 modified for Navy purposes. In this particular case, this aircraft has the livery for India's Navy. But yes, given its many similarities to the 737, in fact, because it practically is just a modified 737, I do consider this in this part of the video. And since this is also a Navy aircraft, well, like Navy is literally slapped on the side of this bird, maybe I'll try it out when I get to the aircraft carrier later. But for the most part, in the remainder of this video, I'll be flying Xavier's 737. And I think I'll fly it in this Royal Dutch Airlines livery. So again, this is what the aircraft looks like. Also, I should mention that this is the first aircraft that I'm talking about that has flaps. So on your keyboards, you'll notice you'll find the brackets, keys, right directly to the right of your P key. If you press the left bracket key, that will extend the flaps. I'm just going to keep spamming this button just to demonstrate because this thing has like a million flap settings. And then the right bracket button will retract the flaps, like so. So, since this thing has flaps, I should briefly discuss its settings. So this aircraft has 8 flap settings. The first one brings out this forward flap right here and also very, very slightly extends these flaps. All other flap settings merely extend the flap some. So this is the second flap setting. It's once again like hardly noticeable at all. It's only like 2 degrees. Setting 3 brings this thing up to 5 degrees. And if I go to setting 4, now the flaps are at 10 degrees. This is about quarter flap, which is what I would be using for takeoff. But I will get to takeoff in a few moments. In setting 5, just kind of continues the flap settings. Like, the higher the flap setting, the more likely you're going to use that. Setting 7 is probably the primary flap setting I would use during descent to an airport. And then I would use setting 8. This is the final setting. This is full flaps for final approach. I should also mention that setting 7 is like 30 degrees or 3/4 flaps. But anyway, let me bring the flaps in for right now. And let me take you into the cockpit. So actually, before I do, I should note that this aircraft has no special animation. So if I press X, nothing happens. If I press F, nothing happens. There are no special functions for this aircraft. And nor does there have to be, because this is pretty simple enough. Alright, so here's the cockpit. And compared to pretty much every other single aircraft in this game, this is the most detailed cockpit of them all. And yes, it is pretty damn detailed. Like, you see this nav ball right here. This works just as it would on an actual 737. I think that nav ball also works as well. That altimeter works, the compass. This little lever right here is the air brake. You see that when I deploy the spoilers, this lever comes forward this way. This lever down here is the parking brake. So, actually, I'm going to keep the parking brake enabled. Ooh, what does this red button do? Well, I don't know, because it doesn't really do anything. You also see this flap lever. I'll show you that in a second. But first, let me cut these engines. But you see, if I press the R key, you see those levers go down to indicate that the engines are now off. Now, this throttle stick is unlike any other stick that you've probably seen in aircraft. Maybe, maybe not. But if you watched last week's video where I talked about the Piper Cub, you saw how simple that throttle stick was. You know, it basically allowed you to close or open the throttle. But this one, well, it's got like practically 4 sticks. So this stick right here, this stick, these 2 sticks basically work the both main engines' throttle. And you cannot throttle one engine up, throttle down the other. The engines work together. And then these 2 levers up here, as you might have noticed a minute ago, it's waving at you. I am such an idiot. This is the thrust reversers. So yes, this is also the first aircraft to include thrust reversers. So if I actually go back out into the follow can, I think if I hit the back button, absolutely nothing happens, because I completely forgot the fact that the engines are off. So yes. And hitting 0 just brings this thing back up to idle. So I'm actually going to bring the stick forward so I can show you this flap stick real quick. And yeah, you basically have those same settings like I told you about in a few minutes ago when discussing the flaps. So not much else to say about that. So I'm actually going to set that to 10 degrees, and let's bring the throttle stick down. Let's get it properly put back on idle. And I think that just about covers the cockpit. Before I do anything else, there are 5 additional views that this aircraft has. So this is wheels back, so you're looking at the aircraft from the undercarriage. You can see those main gears. You can also see the nose gear. Wheels back shows you the main gears again, but this time the camera is facing backwards. There's also 2 cameras to look at each wing, the left wing and the right wing, almost as if you were a passenger in that appropriate seat on the airplane. There is also a tail cam, and all of these cams that I just mentioned, they're all fixed to whatever orientation the aircraft is in. Also, I should note these gauges that this aircraft has. So the compass is the same. You don't really need to do much different with that. The altimeter is the same. But this air speedometer is different. It measures from 0 to 500 knots. Actually, it measures to 600 knots if you use the full 360 degrees. But chances are you're not going to be sending this aircraft to 600 knots. That's a bit dangerous. You'll also notice this tachometer here is different. More suitable to measuring the throttle of the jet engines. It actually measures in percent, like 10%, 20, 30, 40, 50%, 100%. This one's a bit friendlier in telling you what percentage your engine is operating at, with 0 obviously being off. This vertical speed indicator, instead of measuring from 0 to 2,000 feet per minute, actually measures from 0 to 6,000 feet per minute. Also, this nav ball here actually reflects what it actually looks like in the cockpit, like you saw a few minutes ago. And then there's also this navigation compass, which is affiliated with the radio. But as I had mentioned a few weeks ago, I still don't know how to operate the radio. So I'm not going to be going into this thing at all. But anyway, I think it's time to fly. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to let you guys listen into what this aircraft sounds like. I'm going to turn on the engine. I'm going to throttle it up, and then I'm going to cut the engines, come to a stop, and then I'll get into how to actually fly this bird. So, here we go. And the engines are all set, ready to go. Sorry folks, but both engines will turn on at the same time. You don't get the proper procedure of engine 2 being turned on first, followed by engine 1. Sucks, I know, but that's the way it goes in GeoFlight Simulator. So let me go ahead and throttle up. I'm going to do it slowly, or else you're not going to get a full appreciation from this engine sound. So here we go. And there you go. That's the aircraft for you, or the engines for you. That's what they sound like. Maybe I can come to a stop. Here we go. So yes, that's what the engines sound like. Now let me go ahead and tell you how to take off. So I've got my engine set to setting 4, which is about 10 degrees. Basically, you hit the opening bracket key 4 times to get to this setting. It's about a quarter flaps and is the most suitable setting if you want to take off in this aircraft. So then what you do is release the parking brake and then engine full throttle, and we are rolling. So one thing you might notice is that when this aircraft gets to about 100 knots, the nose is going to start pitching up That's going to be normal. Once you pass 125 knots, you're at a good minimum speed for rotating and taking off, which I just did. And if you want to keep your flight as legit as possible, try to keep this indicator toward the 10-degree mark. So okay, I'm going to hit the G key. That is going to retract the landing gear. And there we go. I am airborne. So, yeah, basically, if you want to fly this aircraft legitimately, some things to note. You'll want to throttle down once this needle starts getting close to 250 knots because that's like an airspeed limit when you're below 10,000 feet. You'll know you reach 10,000 feet when this long skinny arm reaches the number 1 over here. Proper ascent should be done with the nose going no higher than about 10 degrees. Let's see, I'm about to overspeed, but I'm not going to give a damn right now because I'm about to do some serious barnstorming here, boys. But, yeah. Also, keep the aircraft as level as possible, and when you bank, I can't tell you a good maximum bank angle, but don't go ludicrous like this. Actually, let's bring the flaps in for minimum drag possible. And yes, we're passing 300 knots. It's time to do some serious barnstorming. I can show you what this aircraft's capabilities are when you're just flying for the thrill of it. So yes, we're approaching 400 knots. So yes, you can do slight bank turns. Oh, this is a good time to note the wing flex. So if I pull up, you notice the wings kind of bent up like that. If I pull down, you see the wings bent down like that. I think they also kind of flex a bit if you roll. Actually, speaking of rolls, when you're at these high speeds, this aircraft is pretty good at doing a barrel roll. It's not the fastest barrel roll in the world, but when you're going fast enough, and if you're high enough, yes, barrel rolls are very much a possibility. As is a loop-de-loop. So yes, let me show you. And I don't even think I'm gonna go beneath 200 knots on this thing. Yep, here's apogee. I just went a little bit below 225 knots, but there we go, 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 there we go. So then you just have to be ready to level this thing off when the indicator shows that the aircraft is nearing 0 degrees attitude. And yeah, this aircraft's pretty good at doing stuff like that. So slowing down, well, if you apply the spoilers, this thing sure as heck will come to nearly a complete stop. But how do you actually land this thing? First off, I need to find the airport, which is all the way over there. So I'm going to need, what am I going to want to do? Is this an airport right here? Hang on. Pause it and, where am I? I don't think that's an airport, is it? I don't think so. Actually, I think I'm looking at a rail yard. So yeah, that's not a suitable place to land. Give me a sec, guys. Okay, so I'm coming in on final to Atlanta International Airport. So I'm going to, for starters, bring my flaps to about 3/4, and I'm going to bring the gear down. I'm going to throttle up to 50%. I want to try to keep the needle around this 150 knot mark. That seems to be, like, actually, typically I do kind of go above 150 knots. Actually, it's about below 150 knots where I start to get a little uncomfortable with my landing. But okay, I'm coming in fine. So I'm going to bring the flaps to full. Basically, you want to go to like full flaps when you're descending. It lets you land as slow as possible as you approach the runway. And it also, at these low speeds, allows you to attempt a butter landing. as I am obviously about to do. And once you touch down, press B to apply the spoilers, and then hit the down key on your keyboard to throttle up the thrust reversers to full. You can also apply some parking brake. At 50 knots, you can bring in the spoilers, and I'll apply some more brakes. 25 knots, I cut the thrust reverser, and I will also go ahead and tuck the flaps back in. And let's taxi off the runway here, and once I'm clear, I'm gonna go ahead and apply the parking brake. We'll come to a complete stop. And there we go. I might be blocking some of the taxiway there, but it's fine. So in summary, have your flaps at full. Approach with about 150 knots of speed. Once you're about 20 feet from the ground, set the engines to idle. You don't need to apply engine power anymore. Once you touch down, apply the spoilers, and set thrust reversers to full, and then just work on stopping the bird. So this aircraft is not STOL at all. However, despite the fact that it is not slow takeoff and landing, I have found that it is slightly possible to land this aircraft on the deck of the USS Dennis. Let me show you. Okay, so applying the same techniques that I told you. Flaps full, bring the gear down. Now, as I have stated in previous videos, the idea when landing on a short runway, you land as early as possible, you land as slow as possible, and do everything within your power to come to a complete stop. So I'm going to be coming near stall speed by the time I land on the deck. That is required. However, I have wind set to calm, and I'm not going to be able to stop this aircraft in time. In fact, you see, I'm about to go take a drink. So I'm dead. See you guys. Alright. However, I am slightly able to land on the deck of the carrier if I have my wind set to 30 knots, basically to simulate the aircraft carrier actually moving. From there, it is possible because I'm able to fly slower, like 30 knots slower relative to the ground. It does become possible to possibly land on the carrier. It's not an easy feat. And there's still a good possibility that I still won't land on it. In fact, here we go. I've landed. Okay? There. I have successfully landed on the deck of the USS John C. Stennis, and there must be a cloud overhead or something because it got kind of dark over here. Okay, I just brought my aircraft back to the end of the deck. I'm going to trim about 15 degrees off of my flaps. And I'm going to attempt to take off from this carrier. So here we go. We're going to use the parking brake. My engines are full throttle. And yeah, we've got some swell weather going on right here. Let's see, 100 knots. I'm going to pull back, and I should be able, there we go. I am barely able to take off from the carrier. Of course, it would be so much easier if I had, an arresting cable to stop my aircraft's speed while, trying to land on the carrier. But yeah, it kind of is possible to land this aircraft on the carrier. And I failed to mention it a few minutes ago, but the carrier, its deck is only 1,000 feet long. So I was working with a runway that is shorter than even Saba's to try to come to a complete stop and take off. So it's risky business trying to operate in and around an aircraft carrier. But yeah, with that, I think that just about covers everything for the 737, which is gonna do it for this week's video of GeoFlight Simulator. So next week, I'm gonna be talking about the Hughes Osage. That is right here. It's a helicopter. But I'll be going into further detail when I get to that video. But anyway, that's everything. I think that concludes this week's video. So I'm Spacebun. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching. See you all next week. Sierra Bravo 717 checking out. Okay, it just occurred to me that I did say earlier in this video that I was going to try out the P8I Neptune. It's the aircraft carrier. Let it not be said that I'm not a man of my word. So let me go ahead and try this, though I fear I'm about to crash and die in this thing. So you better tell Sherry I love her. Alright, let's see what happens. Spoilers, thrust reversers, park and brake engage, full. Can I make it? Answer is... I don't know whether to count that or not. Okay, I thought about it long enough. I've decided that despite the fact that this plane is obviously breaking the laws of physics, such that its nose gear is hanging over the edge, zero gravity, and ought to be falling down but isn't, since the aircraft is nice and level, I'm going to count that as a successful landing.